Okay, let's dive into something that, well, probably hits close to home for a lot of us. The future of wine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, climate change isn't just some far-off issue anymore, right?
Hmm.
It's actually putting vineyards, the ones making the wines you love, under some serious stress right now.
It really is.
So we've been looking at sources digging into the science, the economics, even the whole culture around winemaking.
A deep-rooted culture.
Exactly. And the big question we're tackling is, what does a warming world actually mean for the wines you enjoy today? And could it even change, like where grapes can grow at all?
Yeah, that's the core of it.
The scale of the challenge, it just jumped out at me right away from these readings. It feels bigger than I thought.
It is pretty significant. We looked at this one really comprehensive study, pulled together tons of research,
Okay.
and it painted, well, a pretty stark picture. It suggested that if temperatures climb more than 2 degrees C above pre-industrial levels,
Which seems increasingly likely, unfortunately.
right, then up to 70% of the world's current wine regions could become essentially unsuitable for the grapes they're known for today.
70%.
Yeah.
Wow. That's not just a small adjustment. That sounds like redrawing the entire global wine map.
It really does. It's a massive potential shift.
So what makes them unsuitable? Is it just too hot?
Well, that's a big part of it. Around 29%, the study estimated, might face conditions just too extreme, like relentless heat, serious drought.
Okay.
But another 41% could become unsuitable if growers don't adapt, if they just keep doing things the same way.
So adaptation is key for that chunk.
Definitely. Think about the classic hot, dry regions. They get hotter, drier, pushing limits. But even cooler places face weird issues, new pests, diseases, wild weather swings.
Right. It's not just about struggling to grow any plant, but specifically these wine grapes, which are notoriously fussy, aren't they?
Exactly. So sensitive. Winemaking traditions, specific grapes like, say, Sangiovese in Tuscany or Pinot Noir in Burgundy, they're tied to those places, those climates. That's terroir.
Magic word.
Right, and climate change is basically pulling the rug out from under that whole concept for many regions, pushing vineyards past their historic environmental sweet spots.
And it's not just if the grapes grow, but how they grow. It changes the grape itself and therefore the wine.
Absolutely. This is where the chemistry gets, well, complicated. Warmer temperatures speed up ripening.
Okay.
So grapes pile on sugar really fast, but at the same time, they lose acidity. And crucially, those complex flavor compounds, the anthocyanins for color, tannins for structure, their development often doesn't keep pace with the sugar rush.
More sugar means higher alcohol in the finished wine.
You got it. And losing that natural acidity, that can make wines taste kind of flabby, less fresh. It might even affect how well they age.
So winemakers face a dilemma.
A really tough one. Do you pick early to keep the acid, but maybe miss out on full flavor development?
Or wait for flavor and end up with these super high alcohol, maybe unbalanced wines.
Precisely. It's a balancing act that's getting harder.
I've definitely heard people, experts, talk about wines tasting different, maybe flatter, or sometimes that sort of cooked or raisiny character.
That raisiny note, perfect example. That's what happens when grapes basically bake on the vine.
Ugh.
And yeah, the big worry is that wines lose their distinctiveness, that sense of place. If everything from warm regions starts tasting vaguely of cooked fruit, well, the unique character of Bordeaux or Napa or Rioja starts to blur.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I even read it's making things like the Master Sommelier blind tasting exams trickier.
Apparently so, because those classic regional markers are becoming less reliable.
And it's not just the slow creep of heat, right? It's also the extreme stuff.
Yeah.
Wildfires seem like a huge issue, especially California, Australia.
Oh, absolutely devastating. And wildfires bring this specific, really nasty problem: smoke taint.
Smoke taint. Okay, what does that mean for the wine?
It's awful because often you can't really tell there's a problem until after harvest, during fermentation. The smoke compounds get absorbed by the grape skins.
And the taste?
Unpleasant is putting it mildly if it's bad. People describe it like licking an ashtray.
Oh, wow.
Or sometimes Band-Aids or medicinal. It's released during fermentation, especially bad for reds since they ferment with the skins.
That sounds nightmarish. I remember hearing after those huge 2020 fires in California, like a significant chunk of grapes were just left unpicked because of smoke taint fears.
Something like 8%, yeah.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking. And these intense fires linked to climate change make smoke taint a terrifying yearly worry now in vulnerable spots. Major economic hit, too.
So with all these immense challenges, are winemakers just, Given up.
Not a chance. Actually, the ingenuity is pretty remarkable. People are getting incredible creative vineyard managers, researchers, everyone.
Okay, like what are they doing on the ground?
Well, vineyard adaptations, things like much more precise irrigation, using shade cloth over vines sometimes.
Physical shade?
Yeah. Or planting specific cover crops between the rows to manage soil moisture, keep things cooler down there.
And changing the actual grapes they plant. That feels like a huge deal for regions built on specific varieties.
It is a huge shift, culturally, politically difficult for famous regions.
Yeah.
But it's a key strategy. You see places like Bordeaux, famous for being traditional, right?
Very.
They've actually approved trials of new grape varieties, 6 of them recently. Grapes better suited to heat, ones that hold acidity like Aranar Noah, or give powerful fruit like Touriga Nacional. They can blend small amounts in. For now.
Wow, even Bordeaux bending the rules. That says something.
Shows how serious the threat is felt. And they're looking underground, too, at rootstocks.
The foundation of the vine.
Exactly. Different rootstocks affect water use, vine vigor. It can help the main grape variety on top cope better.
What about how they, train the vines? The trellising.
Absolutely. Simple changes can shade the fruit better. And then there's cutting-edge stuff, like research at UC Davis using special shade film. Yeah, films that block specific light wavelengths, the near-infrared, the heat-causing ones, letting the good light through but keeping grapes cooler. They found wines from grapes under these films were rounder, more complex.
So clever ways to shield the grapes.
Yes. Things once only seen in super hot places like parts of Spain or Australia, now being tried in Napa, even Burgundy. Plus, picking earlier, often super early in the morning coolness to save acidity, sometimes just trying to beat the wildfire season.
And what about after picking? Can they fix issues in the winery?
They try. For smoke taint, they do small batch tests first, sometimes blend affected grapes into cheaper wines where it's less noticeable. Research is looking for enzymes to break down smoke compounds, but it's tricky, you might strip good flavors too.
So blending becomes even more important.
Definitely. Using different varieties to balance things out, add acidity here, tannins there, and yeah, some higher tech stuff is appearing. Engineered yeasts that produce less alcohol. Even electrodialysis.
Electro what now?
Electrodialysis uses an electric current and membranes to basically tweak the wine's chemistry, remove excess salts, help boost acidity. It's pretty technical.
Oh, okay. From changing how you prune a vine to using electricity, quite the range of responses.
It really is.
So let's wrap this up. What does this all really mean? We've seen how climate change is fundamentally messing with the grapes, the wine, but also the incredible, sometimes surprising ways people are trying to adapt from the dirt right up to the lab.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, I think, is this tension. You've got centuries of tradition, this deep regional identity tied to certain grapes and styles, versus this really urgent, almost existential need to innovate just to keep making wine at all in some places. Which brings up a huge question.
The one I keep coming back to. How much can winemakers change things, the vineyard, the cellar techniques, before the wine itself is just something fundamentally different from what it used to be?